Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Friday, August 11th, 2023. It's about 20 after 5 in the morning. I was really tired yesterday, last night, so I went to bed early, which means I'm awake early. It's kind of funny here in this room at the Wisma Ruma Kita. I discovered that there's actually another hotel or hostel here in Padang called Ruma Kita. And if you type Ruma Kita into Google Maps, that's the one you end up at. And this one will never show up. So you actually have to type in Wisma Ruma Kita. Then this one shows up. Anyway, here in my tiny room at the Wisma, just trying to get comfortable here, at the Wisma Ruma Kita, I have my camera quite far away from me on a desk over there. But I can't really see the screen, but in the screen my face looks really, really red. Like tomato, like my shirt red, like my shirt matches my face. I wonder if I really look that red, or is it something about the white balance in here? I really don't know. And the walls here are a little bit thin. As you can hear, it's not like a solid cement thick wall. So what I've done, I don't really want to speak that loudly. It's a little bit inhibiting because I don't want to bother other people in the hostel, but I don't think the room beside me is occupied. It's kind of funny, I noticed that the way they number the rooms, it goes 1, 2, 3, 3A, 5. So I'm in room 5, but when I saw 3A, I was confused for like half a second. 3A, why do they call it 3A and there's no 5A and no 3C, you know, what's going on there? And then I realized, of course, that they didn't want to call it room number 4 because 4 is an unlucky number. And this whole neighborhood, I'm discovering more and more, is very much a Chinese neighborhood in Padang. Chinatown, if they call it Chinatown, is right beside here. Like old, like traditional old Padang is right here alongside the river. So it turned out I chose very wisely in terms of, you know, picking a hostel. I spend a lot of time picking this one out, and I really focused on location, and I'm very happy that I ended up here in this neighborhood. This is really where it suits me. Padang is like one of those cities that has an old traditional core, and then there's new Padang. So most of the city is out there towards the immigration office where I'm going today. And I mean, you could stay out there. I'm sure there's lots of really nice hotels out there, but it would just be like a modern city, a modern Indonesian city. This area has all the history and old buildings. I'll talk about that a bit more later on when I talk about what I did yesterday. But anyway, room 3A is beside mine, which technically is room 4, and doesn't seem to be occupied. So I don't think I have to worry about a neighbor over there. You end up looking for clues in places like this. If there are slippers outside the door, it's like, okay, it could be occupied. And every room has a bath, a towel rack on the outside, so you can actually see if there's a towel hanging there or not. And if there is a towel, chances are the room is occupied. But if there's no towel, there's no one there. And finally, every room seems to have a switch on the outside that turns on all the power. And when you turn on the switch, it glows red. So I can see, oh, red light, red light, red light. Probably means the room is occupied. But 3A, there's no red light. So I think I'm okay. But I still feel a little bit like I have to keep my voice down or something. I don't feel quite relaxed in this room. I feel like I would be bothering people. But I think it's okay. So today is Biometrics Day, which means that I have to go to the immigration office to have my picture taken and my fingerprints taken. They call that biometrics. So the way it works, when you get a visa extension in Indonesia, at least in Sumatra, you have to go to the office 3 times. They're trying to simplify the system. I noticed that when I went to Pekanbaru in particular, there was a big movement afoot in the government to try and make their immigration services more streamlined, because I think a lot of people over the years have expressed negative opinions about the system here, mainly how long it takes and how many times you have to go to the immigration office. And I'm always really curious about these things, where these systems come from and why they never get changed. I mean, it feels like there has to be some kind of logic behind it, but I fail to see what it could be. So in this case, for example, you go to immigration on day 1, and then at that time you fill out the application form and hand in all your photocopies. Then they give you a bill, a piece of paper, and they send you an email now, which also contains the bill. So then you have to go to a bank or the post office to pay the 500,000 rupiah. And you can do that on the same day or the next day. But anyway, that's day 1. And then 2 days later, you have to go back to immigration for biometrics. And biometrics, as I said, is they take your photo and your fingerprints. I've done this many times in the past. It usually goes very quickly. And then you come back 2 days later, and then you finally, if you're approved, you get the visa extension stamp in your passport. So it ends up it requires 5 working days, which of course means for almost everyone in the world, it takes 7 days. Because if you try and spread anything out over 5 days, unless you come in on a Monday, if you come in on Monday morning early, you might get lucky, and then you can get your passport back on Friday of the same week. But most people that wouldn't happen. So if you show up on a Tuesday, then it includes the weekend, and it ends up taking you a full 7 days to complete the process. And you have to live without your passport for 7 days because they keep it. But, that's just the way the system is, and you adapt to it. But it does beg the question, why, right? Like in Pekanbaru, when I did a visa extension there, they did the biometrics at the same time. Why not? Like, why do you have to wait 2 days to have your photo taken after you hand in your application? It doesn't make any sense to me. And what happens during those 2 days? Like, what was the original purpose for this 2-day delay? I cannot for the life of me figure out what the logic is. So yeah, and again, if I were working in the immigration office, I would probably if we had a meeting, I might raise my hand and say, yeah, I have an idea here. When our foreign visitors come in to renew their tourist visa or to extend their tourist visa, why don't we take their photo and their fingerprints the day that they come to our office? Why do we make them come back 2 days later? There's the camera, there's the fingerprint scanner, it's all set up and ready to go. I know that from my experience in Pekanbaru. They're here, they're busy filling out the forms, and just pop them in and take they're already here. Why do we make them come back 2 days later? What is the point of that? I couldn't tell you. But anyway. And then there's another 2 days plus the weekend, so another 4 days before you can come back. And again, I do wonder what happens during those 4 days. I think basically they put all your paperwork into a red folder. All the papers and your passport, they go into this red folder, and they put your name and ID number on the front of the folder. And the way I picture it mentally is that immigration clerk hands off the red folder to a senior immigration official, and that official puts it on their desk, and then it sits there for 7 days until you come back, and the official probably never looks at it for the entire 7 days. It just stays there in the same place, just in a pile on his desk. And then when you come back 7 days later, it's like he wakes up out of a slumber, you know. It's like, oh yeah, and then they take, you know, Doug's here, and they take my red folder, and then he stamps it and hands it back to the clerk, who gives it to me. Like, does anything actually happen during those 7 days? I'd love to sit down with an immigration official and get the story. You know, it's like, what exactly happens, you know? And my, you know, I tell them my suspicion that I think you just put my passport on your desk and it sits there for 7 days, and then you give it back to me when I come back a week later. Like, yeah. So today is biometrics day. I never did shoot a behind-the-scenes video about my experience going to immigration. I think I didn't bother because I kind of told the whole story in the original video. Like, I shot video as I was going there and then as I rode away on my scooter. But yeah, maybe I can just tell the story briefly. Luckily, I have a scooter here because the immigration office is about 8 kilometers away from this guest house. So it's kind of handy to have a scooter to get there. And what I decided to do was ride there following the coast. I thought, since I have to ride 8 kilometers, you know, why not follow the coast road? And I can see the ocean, I can see all the beaches, and I can see all the, you know, all the food stalls lined up along the beach. So that was really interesting. And the path that I took me by the Al-Hakim Mosque. So that's the big modern mosque here, very white, has a style quite reminiscent of the Taj Mahal, as it turns out. It was built in 2017, or at least it opened in 2017, and it's a big landmark of Padang now. So yeah, my scooter ride took me to the coast, right at the Al-Hakim Mosque, and then I rode along the coast, and then I had to turn inland and then do a U-turn and come back on a big main road to finally get to immigration. Unfortunately, I overshot the office the first time. I just didn't see it, and I went right past it, so I ended up having to do another U-turn, come all the way back, and then do another U-turn and come all the way back. And I was very careful the second time not to overshoot the office, because yeah, that can be a real problem. These streets are so busy. There's so much traffic. It's quite chaotic. So you don't want to, you want to do as few U-turns out there in traffic as you can. And I was a bit worried when I went to immigration because in Bukit Tinggi, they wanted me to get a sponsor. And again, as far as I understand the system, for a tourist visa extension, you're not required to get a sponsor. I've never been asked to get one in the past, so I don't know why in Bukit Tinggi, out of nowhere, they brought it up. So that's why I came to Padang. I didn't want to go back to the Bukit Tinggi office because I had trouble there. So I came here to Padang to go to their immigration office, but I was worried about how things were going to go, and I prepared as much as I could. It's a pretty simple thing, as it turns out. You have to have a copy of your passport, you know, information page, a copy of your visa on arrival page from your passport, a copy of your flight out of the country, and in the past I had to have a copy of my hotel receipt, which has the address on the hotel, and the number of nights you're staying and things like that. And when I went to the office in Pekanbaru, they made a big deal about this hotel receipt, that it had to be very official. It had to show the price. It had to show the price in Indonesian rupiah, and it had to be for, like, if your application procedure is going to take 7 days, they want to see a 7-day hotel reservation at the same address. which I don't understand the point of that, but that's what they wanted in Pekanbaru. So I was a bit worried about that too. I'd booked 4 nights here at this place, and then before I went to immigration, it occurred to me that maybe I could get a receipt from the desk here. It's not the kind of place where they keep real official records and issue receipts and things like that. And there's no computer at the front desk that I could see. I don't know how they keep track of online reservations because there's no computer and there's certainly no printer. So that was kind of odd. Maybe there is a computer and I just never saw it. I don't know. I didn't see one. But anyway, I stopped off at the desk and I asked the guy using Google Translate, like, could I get a receipt? You know, I need it for immigration. And to my surprise and my delight, they actually wrote out a long official receipt with the, name and address and phone number of the hotel. Like, even if you don't need a receipt, you do need your address and your phone number of the hotel, because you have to put that on the application form. So you might as well get an official receipt, right? So yeah, he gave me one. And then just before I went into the immigration office parking lot, I pulled my scooter over to, there's a photocopy place. You usually see them around the immigration office, right? Makes sense. So I pulled in there and I got a photocopy of the hotel receipt. I was very happy I was able to do that. One thing always bugs me at these places, there's certain photocopy shops where for some reason, if you give them a smaller piece of paper and you ask them to photocopy it, after they photocopy it, they think they're giving you good service by cutting the paper to size. So they cut away all the extra paper to make it the same size as the original receipt. And as soon as they start doing that, I'm like, no. Because when you go to immigration, of course, they're just dealing in, 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. And they all have to be, clipped together, and they all go into folders. And if you give them a little piece of paper, it doesn't stick in properly and it gets lost. You basically want all your photocopies to be the same size. So when the guy is very, very eager and you see him put the paper on one of those big cutting boards, and then he's got the big handle and he starts cutting away all the edges, like, no, stop. Anyway, in this case, I didn't manage to stop the guy. So I ended up getting my receipts, these tiny little slips of paper. He cut them to the same size as the original receipt. And I was going to ask him, well, can you do it again? Because I want the full-sized piece of paper. But I didn't bother, and I took it away. So I was very happy that I had the hotel receipt and a photocopy of the receipt. And then when I went up to the window, finally at the immigration office, they took one look at the receipt and just sort of shook their head and pushed it back across the counter. So, we don't need that, sir. It's like, oh no, come on. Every immigration office I've been to in Indonesia has been so concerned about the hotel receipt that they really, really need to see that. And as I said, in Pekanbaru, it had to be practically certified by the president of the country. They were so concerned about it. And then so I finally get a really nice hotel receipt. Yeah, this happened in Thailand too. I remember when I went to immigration there, and they, it took me by surprise. I think that didn't happen for a long time, going to immigration offices. And then in Thailand, I went there with all my papers and I was ready to go. And they said, oh, we need a receipt from your hotel. I was like, oh, that came as a complete surprise. And I had a lot of trouble getting a receipt when I was in Thailand. So anyway, this hotel receipt business has been weighing on my mind for years now. And then I finally have this beautiful, nice hotel receipt, official, and signatures and dates and stamps. And then at immigration here, they just shake their head. No, we don't need that. And they push it back. And I'm like, oh, come on. Make up your mind, immigration offices. So I did not need a hotel receipt. But then the woman at immigration said something very strange, and I still don't understand it. She said to me, you don't have a sponsor, do you? You don't have a sponsor, do you? And this really confused me because I didn't know what it meant. Because I confirmed that no, I don't have a sponsor. And my instinct was then to say, do I need one? But then I caught myself. It's almost like going to immigration in my mind is like a police interrogation. And of course, if you're ever dealing with the police or the military, anything like that, it's best to keep your mouth shut. Like, I think it's a police tactic to be silent, you know, if they're interrogating a suspect, and just let the person talk. Just let them talk and talk and talk, and they'll usually end up incriminating themselves. So at immigration, I just try to, you know, if they ask a question, I will answer, you know, yes or no. I'm not going to embellish my answers, right? Because it can only get you in trouble. Like, no good can come from telling the story of your life at immigration. They ask you a question, answer it, but answer it briefly. You know, don't elaborate. Because if you elaborate and you give other details, it gives them something to latch onto, and then they can ask more questions, and it turns into a real long interview. And so you just say yes, no. So the woman said, you don't have a sponsor, do you? And again, my instinct was to say, oh, do I need a sponsor? But of course, if I start asking, do I need a sponsor, she might actually say yes, and then I'll be in trouble. So she said, you don't have a sponsor, do you? And I said, no, I don't. And then I just shut my mouth. And then she gave me another piece of paper, a very simple one, where this was very strange, but I had to write down my name and then sign it at the bottom. Basically, I was my own sponsor. I was signing a form that said, I don't have a sponsor, but I'm verifying that I am who I say I am. And then I filled it. It was a very, very simple form. So it's basically, it reminded me of this Canadian system in the past where to get a passport, you had to have a guarantor. A guarantor would be someone who vouches for you, and had to be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. And if you couldn't get a guarantor because you were overseas, then you had to fill out an official legal document called like a declaration in lieu of guarantor. So you're supposed to have one, but they understand that you're in a foreign country, you don't know. Like, this lawyer or engineer or doctor has to have known you for 10 years in order to be your guarantor. And obviously, if you're in Bangkok or somewhere, you're not going to have anybody like that. So then they make you fill out this thing called declaration in lieu of a guarantor, and it has to be filled out in front of a lawyer, and then it gets an official seal from the lawyer who witnesses it. It's a whole deal. So this form at immigration seemed like declaration in lieu of a sponsor. It was almost like you did need a sponsor, like according to the official rules, you needed one, but I think they've had so many foreigners show up there like upset and confused, unsure what to do, like, how do I get a sponsor? And it creates a big problem over and over again. And I'm guessing that over time, someone in the office said, well, this sponsor business is a real headache for us, dealing with all these foreigners. So let's just make another form. And if they don't, like, officially they have to have a sponsor, okay, but let's just pretend they don't, and let's make them fill out this form to cover ourselves. So I think that's basically what happened. So I was happy about that. So the result of that is that I did not need an official sponsor. I just had to fill out this simple little form. In the immigration office, like, the whole building was quite interesting. First impressions were that it was an older building. I commented in my original Planet Doug video that in my experience, the immigration offices are located outside the cities, like 10 kilometers away from the downtown core. And I assume they did that because the land is cheaper out there, and they can, get more land for the same amount of money, because they often have like very large parking areas. But this one is pretty much in downtown Padang, and there's almost no parking at all. They're very busy places. Indonesians seem to be in great need of passports these days. Getting a passport, getting old passports renewed. Because every immigration office that I go to, I'm always the only foreigner. Oh, that's not true. This time there was one other foreigner there. But normally I'm there completely by myself, and the immigration office for foreigners is small. It's like a tiny cubicle up on the second floor in this case. But there will be a couple hundred Indonesians there, big crowds of them sitting in chairs, waiting, taking numbers. And as far as I can tell, the only reason they're there is to get a passport. And it always strikes me as surprising that this many Indonesians need passports or need their passports renewed. So I guess Indonesians are great travelers these days, a lot, you know. So yeah, it always surprises me how busy these places are. So when I first show up, I always have a little bit of my heart sinks because it looks like a huge crowd of people. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to take all day. But then it turns out that huge crowd of people, they're all Indonesians, and they're being dealt with by an entirely different system. In fact, after I found a place to park my scooter, which was really hard, like the entire scooter parking area was completely full. I had to park mine outside beside this pile of bricks because there was no room, you know, in the normal place. So I parked my scooter, and then there's the front doors, and for some reason also at immigration buildings, the front doors, like the main entrance, is always sealed. And I don't know why. Like, you walk up to the building, here's the front of the building, there's the main entrance, and yet they'll have chains around it and they'll be completely blocked. I'm like, I don't know why that is. Like, somehow they made a mistake when they designed the building, like they built it and then thought, oh, actually the front door doesn't really go anywhere useful. Let's close it and let's open up this tiny side door. And that's where people go in, and that's what they did in this case as well. So I went around to the side, and there was a desk where a guy was handing out numbers. I guess you had to get vetted by him. He goes through all your documents, all your paperwork, make sure you have everything you need. He asks you, why are you here? And then from a computer system, he punches out a queue number, to give it to you. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to take a long time. And I went up to the desk to get my queue number, and then he just, no, you just go in, second floor. So you can skip all of that procedure, because the foreigner office is completely separate from the regular immigration office. And then you go inside this big open area, and it's kind of interesting because there's all the seating, like there's 50, 60 people sitting in chairs, and there's all these windows, they call them lockets, locket 1, locket 2, locket 3, 4, 5, all the way around. And then above them, the ceiling was completely open. So there wasn't a ceiling above them. The second floor was completely open with a balcony running around it with tiny offices arranged around in a circle. And that's where you had to go as a foreigner, up to locket number 12. So I climbed up the steps. It took me a while to find the steps, but someone helped me. They pointed them out to me. I went up, and then you go around the balcony, and it's really cool because you can look down on all the people below you and watch all the activity down there. Very interesting old building, as I said. And then you go around the balcony to locket 12, very small, and a small window. One thing about Indonesian government offices, they love information billboards. I mean, they're not signs, they're not even placards, they're not posters, they are massive billboards. So like this room that I'm in right now, I've got 4 pretty much completely blank walls. You would never see that at an Indonesian immigration office. That entire wall from floor to ceiling will be covered in dense writing. They take all of their official guidelines and documents and procedures and manuals and then blow them up to like wall size and then fill the walls with these long, complicated paragraphs of text, just like all over the place. And I don't know why they do that, but it gives them a very distinct look. And you saw that there. You go up the stairs and you climb up from here to the first level of stairs, and the wall in front of you will just be like a solid block of text from floor to ceiling. It's kind of crazy. But I went around the balcony, and there's the window, very small window for foreigners, and then there were 3 very friendly, very eager young people sitting behind the window. One, two women and a guy, I think. And yeah, so you go up there and they greet you with a big smile. They're very, very friendly. And you sit in a chair at the window, and I'm giving them all my papers. And then that's when the woman kind of looked at my hotel receipt and said, "No, we don't need that. We don't need that, sir." Broke my heart. And that's when she said, "You don't have a sponsor, do you?" And they gave me the application form to fill out, and you're supposed to fill it out in capital letters with black ink. So you're supposed to bring a pen with black ink according to the rules. And they've enforced this rule at other immigration offices. They won't let you fill it out with blue ink. It has to be black ink. So I always make sure I bring a pen with me with black ink. And then I was looking around for a desk, I was like, "Oh, where can I fill this out?" And they said, "Oh, no, it's okay, sir. You can do it right here at the window," which is kind of interesting because it's so empty. There's nobody waiting behind you. So I'm very slow when it comes to filling out forms. I have trouble writing, and I also like to get everything perfect. I don't like to make mistakes. So I read all the instructions at the top, and then I go through the whole form, and I think it through, and I try to fill it out, perfectly. So it takes me a long time to do it, and I don't like doing it right at the window because I feel like people are waiting for me to finish. I don't want to be blocking the way. And the people behind the window are watching you do it, and they really want to help you, so they keep interrupting and interfering and then trying to suggest, "Okay, here you write down, here, and it kind of interrupts my flow. Because I know what I'm doing. I filled these forms out before, but they're very eager to help, and they keep diving in, and they kind of distract me, and I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing." But anyway, I filled the whole thing out there at the window. And I don't think there were any big adventures there. There was nothing surprising. I guess the only surprising thing to me is always that the email address works. I write in my email address, a real one, and then after my red folder gets passed on into the system, my phone will ding, and I'll get an email from immigration that was actually the bill. You have to go to a bank and pay 500,000 rupiah, and so you start getting all these official notifications from immigration being sent to your email address. The system actually works, and that surprises me every time. I'm never expecting that. And then I went out, walked down the street, found a bank, paid 500,000, and yeah, I have a receipt now. And when I go back to biometrics, go back to immigration for biometrics day, which I'll be doing this morning as soon as I'm finishing my coffee, then yeah, biometrics. And then next week, Tuesday, I have to come back again and get my passport finally. Yesterday, by the way, was an interesting day. It was pretty much my first full day in Padang, and I thought I would be getting on my scooter and riding off into the countryside, going exploring. Like, I want to ride down the coast for the most part, but I didn't do that. I saw when I was looking at Google Maps, you know, the satellite view, that very near my hostel, there's a river. And along this river are all the boats, like the fast ferry that goes out to the Mentawai Islands. And the more I looked at, you know, satellite view of this area, the more boats I saw, the more, you know, docks and any kind of, you know, fishing area, like a harbor with tons of cargo boats and fishing boats and Coast Guard and bridges across the river. It's a very, very interesting place. So I decided on my first day just to go for a walk, and I plotted a route from here back to the famous mosque, which is right on the ocean, Al Hakim Mosque. And then from there, I followed the ocean coast until I got to the river. And then I walked alongside the river, crossed a bridge to the other side, walked this way, back across the bridge. And then I went walking all through the neighborhoods alongside the river. And that's how I spent the day yesterday. It's a really interesting day. I had a lot of interesting Planet Doug style small adventures. So I was using my 360 camera. I brought my GoPros, but I had a GoPro on a chest harness, thinking sometimes it'd be nice to capture a little video that way. But I was mainly using my 360 camera, and I got that all set up in the morning, and then I was walking along. And yeah, really interesting. When I went to see the mosque, I didn't go into the mosque. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just wanted to see it, you know, from the outside, basically. So, because I was wearing shorts as well, I didn't want to bother putting on long pants and go into the mosque and things like that. I usually don't do that. So I just sort of went down to the ocean, like there's a beach right there, and then a rocky pier. So it's not really a pier. What do you, like a breakwater? Like all these huge rocks and boulders have been piled up, sticking out into the water, and then it, you know, is a breakwater, prevents the waves from eroding the shore. And I could walk all the way out to the end, and that gave me a really cool view of the coastline and the mosque. And right on the rocks, in front of the mosque, is a shipwreck, like a big steel freighter of some kind had been blown to shore by a storm, and it was like a big shipwreck right there, big rusting steel hulk piled up on the rocks right in front of the mosque. It's a very, very dramatic setting. So that was kind of cool. Took some pictures of that and video of that, and just talking about it and talking about the ocean. It's been a while, I think, since I've been right on the open ocean like that and watching the ocean waves come in. Massive waves thundering onto the shore. And I spared some thoughts about how dangerous the ocean can be. I mean, the amount of water that comes in on one of these waves and then goes back out again is really something. When I was looking at the water and the sand there, it was like dark sand, and my initial thought was there's no way I would go swimming there. It looked too dangerous, and I wondered whether it was or not, because it wasn't like the sandy beach went out from shore like this. It basically went here and then straight down. You could actually see the land drop off because the water, like when the wave receded, you could actually see almost like a sandy cliff. So if you just walked out a few feet, you just kind of go straight down. And then when the water comes in, it's a huge wall of water. And I could see someone who isn't a strong swimmer, or maybe even a strong swimmer, getting caught in that area where the waves keep sucking them back out to sea, and then you can never get your feet on the ground because it's so deep there. Like how, yeah, I think you could really get in trouble. So I wouldn't want to mess around with that shoreline there to go swimming. Though they do have beaches along there that they call, like they have names, and they have, you know, food stalls and tables and chairs where people can hang out on the beach but I don't know if any of them are actually swimming beaches, because the waves look really powerful, which kind of makes sense because I didn't know much about this area before, but the islands, I guess it's a chain of about 70 islands, the Mentawai Islands off the shore. You can get there in about 3 hours by fast ferry, or like 8 or 9 hours by slow boat. So it's a fair distance out there. But apparently these Mentawai Islands are the second best surfing location in the world, next to Hawaii. That's what people told me when I was walking around. Hawaii was number 1, and then Mentawai Islands was number 2, in the sense that they just have the best waves, and the waves are there year round, like just all the time. And there's so many surfing places off all these islands. So I guess the ocean waves are hitting those islands, and then they're getting past the islands, and then these huge waves are hitting the shore here at Padang as well. So yeah, I got to the river, and it was as fascinating as I expected it to be. I just love going out to the water's edge. You can walk into these harbor areas and watch them unloading the boats and loading the boats, and so many fascinating boats to look at. And as I walked along, I passed one place where a bunch of men were sitting inside. It was like an outdoor cafe, like a local kopitiam kind of place. And yeah, they called out to me. They saw me walking by holding my Insta360 camera, and they all kind of waved and, you know, gestured, "Come in, come in, come in." You know, they all hold up their cup of coffee. You know, "Coffee, come, you know, have a coffee." And that happens all the time here. When I walked from this hostel to the mosque, just going through like a couple of back streets to get to the main street and to the mosque, 3 different groups of men signaled to me and invited me to come have coffee with them. That was just between here and the mosque. And in that case, I kind of politely said, "No, I can't, you know, I'm busy, I have to go," you know. So I declined all those invitations because I wanted to get to the river. But yeah, that happens all the time here in Sumatra. It's like you can't go anywhere. If you accepted all the invitations, you'd never arrive anywhere, because you spend your entire day drinking coffee with all the people that invite you to join them. So that happened all day yesterday. And as at this place, this group of men, you know, signaled me to come in, and I thought, okay, sure, I'll come in. And I was holding on to my 360 camera. I joined this group of guys. They all worked for the Coast Guard. They all had like Coast Guard uniforms and shirts, mainly t-shirts that said Coast Guard on them, I think. And I wasn't prepared to record my interaction with them on the 360 camera. For some reason, I normally have a mounting apparatus, because I hold it in my hand, but then I have a way to screw the base into a claw mount, and I can attach it to a table or a chair or something. But I'd forgotten to get that ready, so I didn't have anything with me. So I couldn't really hold the 360 camera. So I just turned on my GoPro thinking, I can capture a minute or 2 of conversation, you know, with these men from the Coast Guard. And I was there for quite a long time, drinking coffee. Took a selfie. There's a woman who was running this little kopitiam. She made the coffee for me. Kopi susu, which is like thick black coffee, but with sweetened milk at the bottom, and then you stir it all up. Kopi susu. And then she was very excited to have me there. And then I took, you know, selfies with her. And then, of course, all the Coast Guard guys were asking me questions about who I am and what I'm doing in Indonesia. Am I going to go surfing at the Mentawai Islands? Everybody's very disappointed to find out that I'm probably not going to do that. I guess that's what most foreigners do here. And I was recording all of this with the GoPro. And of course, when I left, I turned off the GoPro. I hit stop record, and it froze, and the file was corrupted, and I lost the whole thing. So that entire interaction with the Coast Guard, I have no video of it. I might have audio from a microphone. I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to check yet. But yeah, GoPro strikes again. File was corrupted and I lost it all. And that happened 3 times during the day. It happened that time and 2 more times when I was using the GoPro to record, and then it just corrupted the file. And I lost it. So I just stopped using it. I just gave up on it. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I'm having a lot of trouble with my cameras these days. Yeah, and then from there, I walked up to this bridge, crossed the bridge, and I walked down the other side of the river, and then another group of men called out to me, and I joined them for coffee as well, and they turned out to be fishermen. But I'm not quite sure what it is they do, what kind of fishing, but they seem to be working on boats, whether like catching fish to sell in the market, or taking groups of people out with a rod and reel, you know, for deep sea fishing or something like that. But they all seem to be associated with fishing and boats in some manner. And had a nice long chat with them. And this time I kept my 360 camera running because I didn't trust my GoPro anymore. I couldn't really mount it anywhere, but I extended the pole and just sort of put the end of the pole on the ground, you know, leaning against my chair, and I just sort of left the camera hovering in the air and thinking, it was just basically hoping that I get something interesting on the video, you know, not a very professional approach. And of course audio is not going to work because I'm recording with this Rode and then their voices. I mean, to really record that kind of interaction, you'd have to be much more official. You know, set up your camera, put a microphone close to the men you're talking to, but you can't really do that in these sort of casual encounters. You know, it's not like you're running around with a film crew and setting up a professional shoot, you know. But anyway, we'll see what I get. We talked a lot about money in that case, economics. They wanted to know about how much things cost in Canada, like how much does, you know, I had a, you know, copy susu with them, and they wanted to know, well, you get a coffee like that in Canada, how much does it cost? How much does a pack of cigarettes cost? And I asked them about salaries, you know, for like a typical person, meaning these guys, you know, these fishermen, how much money can you make in a month? And they said 3 million rupiah is the minimum monthly salary, and that's $200 US per month. And I asked them, like, well, can you live on that? I mean, can you live an ordinary life on that much money per month? Because it really didn't seem like enough to me. I was doing some quick math in my head, and they told me that a pack of cigarettes costs 40,000 rupiah. And if you smoke 1 pack a day, which I think is normal for smokers, right? At least 1 pack per day, that adds up to over 1 million rupiah per month. So out of a 3 million rupiah salary, over 1/3 of it is just cigarettes. So how in the world can you live on $200 a month? But, you know, they said, yeah, for a single man, that's enough to, you know, to live a simple life on. But they said if they're married and have children, then they need 5-6 million per month. And then they said that a manager, like someone who works in an office and is a manager, they will make, you know, 10 to 15 million per month. But they said in their case, 3 million, you know, $200 per month is what they make. So yeah, that was an interesting chat. Hopefully the video reflects a little bit of that. And then I had some really interesting discoveries that, I mean, I kind of had an idea that this area was old Padang, but I had no idea to what extent it was. So as I was walking around, I saw all these really interesting buildings, some of them kind of restored, turned into businesses or cafes or restaurants or guest houses, some of them abandoned and falling apart, very old market streets, found it, the new train station, all kinds of interesting areas. And then big Buddhist temples. So it was a big Chinese neighborhood, market streets. It was a really, really cool area to walk around in and explore. And I walked a lot. Oh man, I really put in some kilometers. Yeah. And I found a really interesting, I mean, I had coffee with all these local men, and I had coffee and milk at like a typical shop. But I found one really, really nice restaurant, like a fancy, really fancy cafe right on the restaurant. 2 or 3 stories high, all glass, everything was open, called Aura 19, I think AURA19, Aura 19, right on the river. I saw it from the opposite side of the river. I didn't see it when I walked by the entrance, I guess. I didn't see it till I was on the other side. I was just astonished when I saw it from a distance. I was like, wow, look at that place. I mean, I don't usually go out looking for the fancy, tourist restaurant. That's not generally what I'm looking for when I go for a walk. I'm looking more for the, the local neighborhood kind of stuff. But I could not pass up the chance to check this place out. So I crossed over a small bridge, and it turned out to be it was open for one thing. And that was kind of a relief for me, because most things that I look for tend to be closed when I find them. And they make like bubble milk teas, all kinds of specialty iced teas, including, boba, bubble milk. And they make toast. Like this, I ordered one. I ordered like a double cheese burger toast, and it's like a grilled cheese affair with like a meat patty, egg, cheese, and butter. Just tons and tons of butter, and the whole thing is served to you inside a very elegant white box. So the whole thing has a very boutique cafe kind of feeling to it. Yeah, I really like that place, and it turns out it isn't that far away from my hostel. It felt like I was far away from my home because I'd walked so much. I felt like I walked for 20 kilometers, and it was pretty hot during the day too. The sun came out. It was pretty hot. I guess that's where this red face is coming from. But then when I sat down to plot my route home, it turned out that I was 500 meters away from this hotel, from this hostel. So somehow, from here, I went walking all the way over here, and I went all the way around here and up and down the river. But by the time I ended up at this really fancy cafe, it was like a cooperative in a way, like an art space, and there were like many different businesses running out of the same area and sharing the seating or something. Anyway, a really interesting place. But it turned out by the time I got there, I was practically back home already, and I was just like a short distance up this really interesting market street leading from my guest house to the river. So yeah, it was a really good day. I enjoyed that a lot, but man, I was tired too by the end of it. And then, not surprisingly, in the evening, early evening, and then all through the night, it thundered down with rain again. I'm sitting here inside my room, and then I'm thinking, oh, it's probably time to go get something to eat. And every time I have this idea, it's like, oh, it's time to go outside. Hold it. What's that sound, Thunder, rain pouring down out there. Yeah, I don't know where all this rain is coming from, but man, it just comes down and down and down. But luckily it stayed away throughout the whole day. Now lately it's been arriving, in the afternoon and in the evening. And I just went for a short walk up the street. I had my eye on a chicken place. There's like a very simple chicken restaurant there. You get ayam gebrek, they call it. I'm not sure what is so gebreki about it, but you get some chicken with some sambal on top of it with rice, and you can get some tofu and some veggies and things like that. So I just had my dinner there. Nice place. It was okay. I like their ordering system. You sit down with a menu and they give you a order form, and you have enough time just to look over the menu, decide exactly what you want, how many of each item you want, and then you just fill out the little order form and hand it in. The only disappointing thing was the chicken itself. That's, you know, the main thing of your meal, and it's the most expensive part of your meal. But then the piece of chicken that I got was like almost all bone. It was like there was almost no actual chicken there. It's like, okay, for a chicken place, you guys are really skimping on the chicken. So because of that, I didn't have the feeling like, oh, I have to come back to this place, because it was sort of like, kind of, you know, you skimped on the chicken. The rice was good, the tofu was good, the seating was good, service was good, but I need a better piece of chicken than that if I'm going to go to a chicken restaurant. Anyway, so I certainly had like you see these chicken stalls at the side of the road, you know, like fried chicken, and I've had some of that near Bukitingi, and any one of those places will give you a much nicer piece of chicken than what I got at this official chicken restaurant. So that was a bit disappointing. But everything else was very tasty. And I had to get there with my umbrella, pouring rain. When I left, it was the entire time I was there during dinner, the rain was thundering down. Yeah, interesting. So that was my day yesterday. Really interesting. And today, like I said, I'm going to go to immigration. I'll go there as early as possible when they open up. And then I think I'm going to get on the scooter and ride along the coastline south of here, just to go exploring, see what's there. There is a cafe restaurant out there called the Lighthouse, I think. So depending on when it's open, I might try to get to the Lighthouse. But even if the Lighthouse is not available, I'm pretty sure along the coast there's going to be all kinds of places where you could stop to get a hot or cold drink or something. We'll see. So yeah, that's my idea for today, is just to go off exploring on the scooter a little bit. And with that, yeah, I think that is it for behind the scenes this morning. Behind the scenes on Planet Doug. I did watch the latest YouTube video from Itchy Boots. It was kind of interesting. Maybe one of her less eventful videos of late. Where was she? In Ghana. So she's in Ghana. And yeah, she woke up in the morning in a treehouse, because she slept in a treehouse at a national park, and then she spent the whole day riding on her motorcycle towards the city of Kumasi in Ghana. But just before Kumasi, there was a crater lake called Busumtwe, something like that. Some people call it Busumtwe or Busumt. I'm not sure about the pronunciation, but it's really an interesting place. Like, Nora Lee had clearly picked it out in advance. She'd done her research on Ghana, looking for interesting places to stay, and this crater lake is the only natural lake in all of Ghana, and it was created by a meteor impact over 1 million years ago, which makes it kind of cool. So it's like perfectly round. So basically a giant meteor came rocketing in from space, hit Earth, and the impact created this giant hole in the ground, perfectly circular, and it filled with water, and that's the only natural lake in all of Ghana. It's kind of cool. So that's where she decided to spend the night. But I had my usual thoughts. I often think about what a trip looks like on YouTube and what it would actually be like to be living that trip, because her videos look really good and look interesting and exciting, and yet, I don't know, when I break it down in my mind, I find it really hard. I mean, I couldn't do that. Maybe There are some hidden days in there that I'm not aware of, but the way she tells the story, and I think pretty much this is how it happened. Day one, she woke up in the Ivory Coast, drove across the border into Ghana, and then she went to this floating village, spent the night out on this floating village, you know, houses on stilts. So that was day one. And then she woke up in the morning in the floating village, took the boat back to shore, got on her motorcycle, rode all day long through the, you know, muddy jungle roads to the national park, hiked into the national park in, you know, the canopy walkways, spent the night in the treehouse in the national park, woke up, hiked out of the national park, got on her motorbike, rode her motorbike all day long to this meteor impact crater lake, instantly got into a canoe, paddled out into the lake, flew her drone, and then I assume the very next morning she's going to wake up and then ride to the next place. I would be exhausted. There's just no way. I mean, also if I arrived in Ghana, like if I had to go through a border crossing, which I find very, very stressful, I'm spending the night there. I'm done for the day. Like crossing a border, that's it for the day. I'm finished. So as soon as I got across the border, I'd probably look for a place to stay, and I need a day of R&R just to recover from the border crossing. You know, I find them to be very stressful. And then just getting organized with, you know, YouTube videos and charging up your batteries and doing things on the internet. If you can find the internet, find electricity, you know, planning your route through Ghana. I'd probably spend a day or two, and then I would ride to the shore, and then I would probably spend the night near the shore. And the next day I would take the boat out to the village, you know, the floating village. And once I went through all that effort to organize this, to spend the night on this floating village, I'd have to spend 2 or 3 days there. But she spent one night, as far as I can tell. So it was like a whole day of riding the scooter. Yeah, that's an insult to her machine, scooter. Her motorcycle, her adventure motorcycle, all the way to the ocean, to the coast, and then instantly got in a boat that took her out there. And then crashed. Basically, she had to have been tired, sleep, wake up early the next morning, take the boat out again, get back on her motorbike. And one of the things I thought about was, okay, she rode her motorbike to the coast. How did she keep her motorbike safe? I find it really, I'm staying in, you know, a hostel here, you know, with a door that I can lock. And it took me a huge amount of time just to get organized to ride my scooter from Bukitingi to here. But so I'm very curious about how she organizes this. She knew she was going to spend the night out on the lake, but her motorcycle has to stay on shore. So like, where did she keep it? Did she know in advance that there'd be a safe place to put it? And how did she strip down her motorbike, even strip down herself? Because when she rides the motorbike, she's got full-on protective riding gear. She looks like a cross between a Marine, like a soldier kitted out for battle, and an astronaut, you know, with all the gear, the special bags. She's got like a hip bag, all kinds of stuff. And then her motorcycle has like a bag on the front over the gas tank, you know, where she keeps all of her most invaluable, important things there. And then the pannier bags and all the cameras that are mounted, all the mounting apparatus. So for her to stop for the night and unload the motorcycle, that must take a long time and a lot of planning and thinking, making sure she's taking everything valuable off the bike and putting it away and everything like that. But how did she do that to go out to this, this floating village? Because she seems to take just one small bag with her. She has like this waterproof pannier bag that converts into a knapsack. And then she has it over her shoulder like a little knapsack. And then that's all she brings with her. And I'm thinking, well, what about all her other stuff? Like, did she leave her laptop on her motorcycle? Like, where's the drone? She must have brought the drone with her, but I don't know, all the logistical stuff. How in the world did she do all of that? Yeah, seems like it's a mystery to me. And then, as I said, spending one night in the floating village and then just getting right back on the boat first thing the next morning to come all the way to shore, get back on the motorcycle. And then she went to the tree house and did the whole thing all over again. Small bag, hiking into the jungle to stay in the tree house. In that case, she did mention that the national park had office buildings, like buildings, and they let her keep the motorcycle inside, inside the building. She did mention that, so that worked out well for her. But again, I was leading to this point, I never quite got there. So she rode her motorcycle to the coast, and then it's going to take a boat out to the island or hike into the national park. How does she get out of her riding clothing and into her hiking clothing? Like, is there, even doing that, she would need a room or some privacy, where she can take off all her clothes and put on other clothes. I'm sure she's not doing that out in public. So I'm thinking about all these logistical things, and then you're in the treehouse. Did you have electricity? How did you charge your GoPro batteries? Memory cards? How did you copy your video into portable hard drives to back up all the video? How do you do any of these things? But she's moving so fast and spending just one night in each amazing location. I honestly don't know. I don't know how she does it in terms of the logistics. And B, is it enjoyable? As I said, for me, it would be a very big deal to stay in a treehouse in a national park with a canopy walkway. It looked like an amazing place. And for me, to get to a place like that would be such a major effort that once I got there, I'd have to stay for a couple of nights at least, 3 nights probably. But she'll land, spend one night, wake up, go to the next place. One night, wake up, go to the next place. Yeah, it's really interesting. I end up thinking about that a lot. What does that feel like? She seems to be in a hurry in Africa, much more so than in other places where I've watched her videos. She seems to be moving fast and trying to cover a lot of ground. So I wonder what is going on behind the scenes. But that is my only other thought for this morning. So I have to get ready to go to immigration, and plan the rest of my day. So with that, I'm going to shut down behind the scenes, and see you in the next video. Well, welcome back, and welcome to a rare evening edition of Planet Doug Behind the Scenes. It's the same day, of course. This morning I went to the immigration office for biometrics. So in honor of telling that story, I'm still wearing my immigration shirt. So it's still Friday, August 11th, 2023, but it's now just after 8 o'clock in the evening. And I just had the events of my trip to immigration in my mind, so I thought I'd end this morning's session with the follow-up story of actually going to immigration, because it was of course quite amusing. It started off just normal. I hopped on my scooter,
since I've already been to the immigration office once, I knew the route there pretty easily, so I just had a lot of fun riding there. I didn't shoot any video of the experience. I didn't have any GoPros running or anything like that. I just rode down the ocean road again and then cut inland, did the U-turn so I could head to the immigration office. And the funny thing is, last time I was talking about how I had to be shown where the stairs were. Like, they told me that foreigners go to the second floor, and I understood that, but when I went into the main floor of the immigration building, I couldn't find the stairs. So I was sort of like, where the heck, how do I get, I could see where I needed to go because the ceiling is open, but I could not find the stairwell, and then someone showed me. And this time when I showed up, I guess a young man whose part of his duties, I guess, is to help hapless foreigners find their way. He spoke English really well. When I sort of showed up at the side door where you go in, I knew where I was going this time, so I didn't really need any help, but this young man came running up and says, "Oh, can I help you, sir? Where do you need to go, sir?" And he was telling me about how I have to go up to the second floor. And then when we stepped inside the building, he pointed down at the floor. He kept trying to tell me where I needed to go to get to the stairs to go to the second floor. And in this case, I didn't need to be told because I'd already been there once and I knew where to go this time. But he kept insisting and kept pointing at the floor. I looked down, and down on the floor, there's this big red line with arrows that said something like foreigner service. Like about this thick, like a big, thick red line that goes this way, then turns this way, then this way, then this way, with arrows pointing which way to go at every stage. And this line with all the arrows led you all the way from the side door into the main floor and took you with a big arrow right to the door that leads to the stairway. So there I was, the first time wandering around, like, how do I get to the second floor? I'm looking for signs, I'm looking for signs. Meanwhile, I'm standing right on top of this giant red arrow that's leading me to where I needed to go, but I never saw it. It never occurred to me to look down, right? And I think about these things all the time in public spaces like airports and bus stations and subway stations, where people have to design the signage in a logical way, and figure out, what is human nature. Like, you want to get somewhere, where do we look for information? You have to figure that out and then put the information where people would naturally look. And of course, this line on the floor seems like such a brilliant idea. I can see someone coming up with this idea. All these foreigners, they keep getting lost. Let's just put a big line along the floor, and all they have to do is follow the line, and it will take them. But of course, no one ever looks down. So that struck me as kind of funny. So there it was. If I'd only thought to look down on my first day, I would like, it's like a yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road, to the Wizard of Oz. Follow the thick red arrow to get to foreigner services on the second floor. And then, kind of funny. I knew this was bad news as soon as I showed up, just as I got to the second floor, and then I had to make my way around the balcony. It's a very narrow passageway beside the balcony to get to the window 12 for foreigner service. Two young women came walking in the opposite direction, like Indonesian women. I recognized them. They were the two women who were at the foreigner window the other day. They were the ones who helped me out. And at that time, there were two women and one man. Two young women and one young man. And maybe I'm doing some men a disservice in this world, but in general, women are just better at everything. Women are better, and they're definitely better at any kind of customer service where, customer service is required, and organization and attention to details. So when I showed up the other day, it was the women who knew everything about what was going on, and the men around them seemed to be quite clueless. That's a pretty standard thing, I find. Apologies to all the men out there. But anyway, so there I am heading to the foreigner window, and the two women were leaving. So I thought, oh no, please don't go. You're going to leave me with nothing but the men now, and I'm going to have to deal with these guys, right? Anyway, they were leaving, going on a coffee break. It's pretty early for their morning break, but who knows where they were going. They were not there when I got to the foreigner window. And then things were okay at the beginning. I gave them the copy of my payment form from the bank. Like when I paid my 500,000 rupiah, the bank gave me a printout of my receipt, and I have to present that at immigration to show them, here, I paid. And then they took that away, and I explained to them I'm here to do the biometrics. And then they said, okay, just wait, sir. So I took a seat out there and I waited, and I could see through the door the place where the biometrics was going to happen. There was a desk there, and a man came and sat down at the desk, and he opened a drawer and pulled out like a Nikon, a very old model Nikon digital camera. And he plugged a cable into the camera, and then he was messing around on the computer for quite a long time. And as I've explained in other videos, the way this works at Indonesian immigration is they don't take your picture and save it to a memory card or anything like that. Same thing with the fingerprints. It doesn't work that way. The way it works is they turn on the immigration network, and they open up your account, your computer file, in a live format on the screen, so that when they take your picture, it is automatically fed directly into your online record. And that involves like a internet Wi-Fi connection, whatever. Like they're basically connected to the national or the provincial immigration server. So everything they're doing, whenever they take the picture or take your fingerprint, is being fed directly into your online record. And that adds a lot of complications. And it takes them quite a long time to get it to work. Just to get the thing working, to get it turned on, to connect the camera, to connect it's a tiny fingerprint reader, like a little box thing, one finger at a time. But anyway, the guy worked on it for quite a long time, and then finally he called out and said, okay, Douglas. So I went in, and then other immigration offices where I've done this, they have it a little bit more professional. They have the camera already on a tripod, they already have it dialed in, but he was doing it handheld. So he's holding the camera with one hand, but then he was operating the computer and a mouse with the other hand, and then he was trying to get the camera lined up, and I swear he was doing this. He was like, I was trying to look at the camera lens. I'm not smiling or anything, I'm not posing for a selfie, but I think you're supposed to look at the lens. They want to see your eyes. It's an ID, basically. So I'm trying to look at the lens, but he's moving the camera. He's trying to line it up, but I guess he couldn't figure out his left from his right or his up from his down, because I guess on the computer it goes the opposite way. He's trying to line up my face on this computer screen, and then he's moving the camera to try to, oh, that's the wrong direction, and he has to move it back this way. Oh, got to raise it up. And then he looks down at his mouse because he's got to click on something in order to take the picture. But while he's doing that, his camera is drifting. And by the time he looks, oh, the camera's moved again. So I'm trying to follow the camera lens, like, okay, you're making me dizzy here. And then he clicked a few times. It was sort of like click. I don't know, he had a heck of a time taking a picture. But he finally got a picture, I guess, that he was happy with, and that got inserted into my record. So we were done with that. But then we had to do the fingerprints. And this guy, I think 90% of his brain was thinking about the weekend, because this was Friday, last day of the week. And I think he was looking forward to whatever his plans were for the weekend, because his mind was not on the job. And he was just not focused. He wasn't really working with me, because you had to put your fingers on in a certain order. You couldn't just, he has to open up the right window on his computer, and then you have to put the matching finger one by one by one on this tiny little reader. And he didn't really speak English, so he was having a lot of trouble describing to me, like, which finger to start with. And he had to start with the pinky finger on your left hand, and you put that down on the fingerprint reader, and then for whatever reason it wasn't working. And then he looked at me and he kept motioning, do this. Like you had to roll your finger around, like roll it up and down, side to side, you know, like you're on a sailboat rocking on the ocean to try and capture the full fingerprint. So I'm trying to do that, you know, I'm moving my pinky finger, and he's just like, no, no, no. And he would go like this. And I would go like this, no, 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 no. And he would do this, no, no. Okay, we got it. And then he would reach out, and since he couldn't verbally tell me what to do, he just sort of reached out and grabbed my next finger. So I put this one on, and then we went through the whole routine all over again. He was like, no, 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 no. You know, he was telling me to roll my finger, roll it side to side, now this, now that. And no matter what I did, my fingerprint would not register on his system. It was really hard to do. And he got that finger, and then we went on to the next one, more trouble. And at this point, he just sort of gave up on me. And he reached out and grabbed my whole hand and grabbed the finger, and he tried to put my finger onto this fingerprint reader. But it was a tiny thing. It was like a pencil sharpener. It was it's not like a big flat surface. It was just barely enough room to get your fingertip on there. And then he wasn't even looking at what he was doing. He just sort of reached out and kind of roughly grabbed my hand and then just sort of slammed it down on this thing. And he missed the reader entirely. Like, instead of having my fingertip on the reader, my whole finger went right across the box, like diagonally. Because he wasn't even looking at what he was doing. He just grabbed my finger and just sort of put it down like that. And then he was like moving it around and sort of slamming my finger down on this thing. And it's like, what are you doing? It was like the Three Stooges trying to take fingerprints. It was so funny. And then I kind of had to wrest my finger away from him just so I could look. Like, you want my fingertip on the sensor, don't you? Like, why? Like, he's... So I put my finger on there, and then we do the whole rolling side to side. And we went through all of them, finally got them done. That was a whole thing. And then we did the next stage, which is always trouble. You have to sign the form. Which, again, it's one of these bureaucratic things I've never understood, because normally when you sign something, it's because you are certifying that what you have filled out is true and accurate. But at no point do I ever see the computer screen. The computer is facing him. I don't see anything. He could have put a picture of Mickey Mouse in, for all I know. He could have put in the wrong picture, the wrong fingerprints, the wrong information. I have no chance to ever review it. So why am I signing it? But you can't actually sign it because it's not a piece of paper. For the signing, they use another technique entirely. It's a big black tablet lying flat on there. And I've gone through this before at Indonesian immigration, where you have to sign, but you can't see the computer screen. So you have no idea how big or small to make the letters, because you don't know what space you're working with. Like, am I supposed to sign like this because it's a big, big tablet, or am I supposed to keep it really small? And the pen doesn't work if it's on an angle. It has to be straight up and down. So you end up, and you can't rest your hand on it either. So you end up holding onto this big black thing, trying to sign your signature, and yet you can't rest your arm anywhere, and you have to hold the pen straight up and down. It's really hard to do. And I tried again and again and again, and he kept saying, no, no, slow, slow. So I try again, really slow. No, slow, slow, he said. And I was like, dude, I'm trying. And again, I can't see the screen. I don't know what I'm doing. I can barely write my signature on paper with a ballpoint pen on an angle. There's no hope of me doing it holding onto this weird pen like this, trying to keep it straight up in the air. And I just gave up on the signature. I just sort of wrote a D and a little bit of a scribble. And I didn't even try my real signature, I sort of write out my whole name with a big swoop covering the whole thing. That's my signature. But it failed so many times, I just gave up. So I just sort of did a big D and then a little bit of a squiggle. And then you say, oh, good. So we got it that time. But then he showed me something. Oh yeah, it was the original application form that I'd filled out days ago. And it had my signature on the bottom that I wrote by hand with a pen. And it was my real signature that matches the signature in my passport. You know, they all look the same. So then for some reason he was holding up that form and saying something to me, but I didn't know what he was saying. And I'm looking at the form and I'm like, yeah, that's the application form. Like, what is it? What are you asking me? What are you asking me? And then he pointed at the signature. He says, you know, and says, yeah, that's my signature. So basically I was telling him, yeah, yes, that is my signature, which made me a little bit nervous because I know the signature I just wrote on his computer form, which I couldn't even see, didn't look anything like what I'd written on the form, and it looked nothing like the signature in my passport, because whatever I scribbled on his big pad, I just gave up and I just scribbled something, you know. So now I was wondering whether someone over the next 4 days, because I gotta wait 4 days to get my passport back, someone's gonna look at the records and say, oh wow, the signatures don't match at all. But honestly, with that system they're using, how could your signature ever match? Really, it just couldn't. Anyway, that whole system is quite funny. I've had the same experience every single time I've gone to an immigration office in Indonesia. The photo and the fingerprints and this trying to write your signature. It's a circus every single time. Makes me laugh. Anyway, it was all done, and then the guy was trying to tell me when I had to come back, and he said, okay, Wednesday. And that kind of startled me because we talked about this at length when I first came to their office and handed in my application form. And they told me, you know, okay, Friday biometrics, Tuesday you can come back and pick it up. And we had trouble understanding each other back then, so we talked about it at length. And I got confirmation several times that it's Tuesday. Come back on Tuesday to pick up your passport. And then this guy said Wednesday. So I went, oh, okay. I wanted to confirm with him because that kind of changes your travel plans. Like, I think I'd have to rebook this hotel room for some more nights if I'm going to stay all the way till Wednesday and then Thursday. So I needed to know exactly what day am I getting my passport back. So I said, oh, like Wednesday or Tuesday? And then he said, Tuesday. I said, oh, okay. So Tuesday. And he said, no, Wednesday. Like, I don't know what he was saying. We went around and around and around. I could not get him to commit to one day or the other. It got to the point where when I said Tuesday, he said yes. And then if I said Wednesday, he said yes. So we were not getting anywhere. So I gave up on him, and I turned to the young man at the original service counter, because he was the only one in the vicinity at the time. So, because the older man doing the biometrics, he didn't speak any English, but I knew the young man at the customer service desk, he did. And he was there on one of my original days. So I turned to him and said, like, could you help me out here? And, you know, am I supposed to come on Tuesday or Wednesday? And he said, Wednesday. And I was like, really? Wednesday? Because you guys told me last time it's Tuesday. And then he started explaining to me, well, the way it works is you do the biometrics and then you have to wait 2 days to get your passport back. And today, Friday, doesn't count because that's biometrics day. So then 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, So then you have to come on Wednesday. And he was explaining this whole thing to me, and I'm like, well, yeah, okay, but you guys definitely told me before Tuesday, not Wednesday. And I was thinking this could cause people a lot of trouble because most people have a more organized life than I do. They're heading out to the Mentawai Islands, things like that, and they probably were counting on getting their passport on Tuesday, and they probably booked a boat out to the islands on Wednesday morning, and they booked flights or hotel rooms or surf camps. And one day makes a big difference. So anyway, I was trying to get it straight. It didn't really matter to me, but I wanted to know Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't want to waste a whole trip, come here on Tuesday only for you guys to tell me to, no, you're supposed to come on Wednesday. But he said Wednesday as well, and he gave me that whole song and dance. I was like, all right, okay, I guess Wednesday it is. And then I hear a woman's voice from the other side of the room. She shouts, no, Tuesday, not Wednesday. And she clearly was the only competent person in this entire room. And she looked at me and she kind of laughed and she smiled. And she pointed at the young man at the service counter, the one who spoke English. And I wish I could remember what she said, but she said something like, his brain full of flowers, or his brain is empty. There's nothing in his brain. He's a very dumb young man. Don't listen to him. And the older man, she just sort of didn't even bother mentioning him because, whatever. And she says, no, it's Tuesday. You come on Tuesday to get your passport. And I'm choosing to believe her because she spoke with, she seemed to know. She knew what she was talking about. All the women in that office know what they're doing, but the men seemed rather hapless, to put it mildly. So anyway, that was, yeah, me and offices and government offices, things go nutty in those places. That was pretty funny. But in the end, it all got done. And I left, and I guess that today is Friday, so now I have Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then Tuesday I go back again, and in theory, I'll get my passport, and it will have a 30-day visa extension in it. So, happy conclusion to that story, I hope, next week, Tuesday. Oh yeah, funny thing is, I'm still in the middle of all of my smartphone problems. I'm currently using this one. So this is the only phone that works right now. It's registered with customs and I have a working SIM card in it, but it is going to be canceled by customs in the next couple of days because I only got 30 days on this phone. That's all they could give me. So it's going to be blocked pretty soon. So I noticed when I went to the immigration office that there is a Telkomsel Grapari office, like the big fancy Telkomsel office, right across the street from immigration. And I thought, that is perfect, because I do have one more phone. I have this old phone. I only use it for podcasts, basically. I don't use it for anything else, but it still kind of works. So I figured, okay, this has never been registered in Indonesia before, so I can take this phone to Grapari, get a new SIM card, register this phone, and I'll be able to use this to get on the internet for the next 30 days that I'm in Indonesia. But then, I thought, biometrics day, that's perfect. I can go in, do biometrics, then I can hop across the road and then get my new SIM card installed in this phone and get it set up. But of course, you can't do that because immigration has my passport. They keep it for 7 days. So, even if you wanted to get a registered new phone and get a new SIM card, you can't because you don't have your passport. So, yeah, I couldn't even do that today. It's kind of funny. My plan today after biometrics was to get on my scooter and go exploring. But I ended up not doing that because I came back here And then I was going to get all my cameras together and go off exploring by scooter, but I needed to get my GoPros set up to do that. And then I realized I've completely run out of memory cards. I've been shooting way too much video lately, and I haven't had a chance to edit any video, so I haven't been able to clear any old memory cards, and my portable hard drives are all full as well. It's a bit of a log jam right now. So I thought, okay, before I go out today, I should sit down and copy some of the video from my memory cards, find room for it somehow on my portable hard drives, and then clear up some memory cards. And turns out that takes a long time. I was going to sit down. I knew this would take a long time, but I was kind of hoping it would just go quickly. But I sat down, and then hours later, I'm still busy copying all these video files and trying to get things to clear up space and get things to work, which kind of leads me back to what I was talking about with the itchy boots and how in the world she does all the logistics and all of her YouTube video editing and copying video files and making backups of all these files so she doesn't lose them. And she's running a drone, a chin-mounted GoPro, a handlebar-mounted GoPro, and a 360 camera, and her smartphone. So she's got 5 different devices shooting video, and she's got to keep track of all that. And I don't know when she has time to do it. I'd love to know what her system is, really. But anyway, I ended up taking so long here this afternoon just fiddling around with memory cards and hard drives and copying files back and forth to free up room. I lost pretty much the whole afternoon doing that, and I didn't end up going anywhere. I've just been here all day working on, and I've been editing some videos and stuff like that. So hopefully the weather will be nice tomorrow. So that is it. The story of biometrics in the Padang immigration office. I still can't get over that guy just sort of mashing my finger, just sort of aiming it in the general, like he wasn't even looking. As I said, he just sort of grabbed my finger and just sort of slammed it down onto the table. And I guess he was just hoping that by some miracle the tip of my finger would land on the sensor.
Well, my my camera battery just died, so I had to replace the battery. And while I was doing that, I noticed that the microphone cord had come loose. So that whole story of biometrics, the whole thing was recorded with the camera's internal microphone, not from my Rode. You're hearing the Rode now, at least I hope you are. This is what it was supposed to sound like. Ah, man. I think I finally made every camera, video, recording, editing mistake that you can possibly make, and yet every single day I find ways to make new ones. Anyway, yeah, sorry about all that poor audio if you sat through that story. I have no idea whether it's even audible or not, because like I said, the microphone cord, for some reason, popped out of the camera. It wasn't plugged in anymore. I have no idea how that happened. Anyway, that's it. Planet Doug behind the scenes in the evening, special evening session. So I'm shutting down, and I'll see you next time, and we'll see what new mistake I can make in the next video. Stay tuned.